With the Spurs coming out of the All-Star break, what are some storylines you got to keep an eye on for the rest of the season?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs. We're in the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. We're having a great day, and Spurs are back in action. Yep, take on the Suns. We're going to be previewing the Suns-Spurs tonight in Austin, as well as tackling the storylines. What should we be looking out for to conclude the season? There's only about 30 games left, so the season's winding down fast. So we're going to pick three. We'll see which ones we'll pick. Me and our guest in just a few seconds. As always, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. Free and available podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Ken5 Plus app, YouTube. You know where to go. Subscribe to the Locked On Spurs newsletter. It's in the description below on YouTube. The link there says LO Spurs newsletter. You want to click on that and subscribe right now. Hey, it's free, so might as well jump on that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get themselves $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Yeah, Spurs, again, like I said, resume play today after the long All-Star break. Suns, Spurs, they got Pistons, Spurs next day, but we're going to be looking at tonight's game. But more importantly, this is it. This is the final lap, if you will, of the Spurs season. 30 games left. A big piece of that is still going to be on the rodeo road trip. So there's some things to keep an eye on, right? Yeah, there is. I mean, whether it be rotations, whether it be players, whether it be the coaching staff, there's some things you got to keep an eye on to wrap up the new season, or the old season now. Pretty way past calling it new. So going to bring in our guest. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Rudy, welcome back to Locked On, buddy.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me back. And I need you to send me a list of all the people that I fill in for, so I can start charging them instead of you.
Right? Exactly. Can they pay you in Amazon coupons or gift certificates?
Oh man, I don't need to get paid. It's my job, man. I'm called upon. I'm doing it. That's my job.
Make sure to follow him on X at Sweep the League, and he'll talk about his show, Sweep the League, in just a few seconds. We're just going to dive into it. So the Spurs resume play tonight versus the Suns. It is the beginning of the end, if you will, of the Spurs 2024-25 season. So about 30 games left. There's some storylines we're going to keep an eye on, whether it be player-wise, rotation-wise, coaching staff-wise, bigger picture-wise. You're the guest, so go ahead and kick us off here. What is the storyline you're keeping an eye on?
My storyline is going to be broken down into the Dark Knight trilogy, and it's just going to firmly be called chemistry. And that's what my storyline for the last remaining 30 games for the Spurs is. Chemistry, part one, is how does the new player, De'Aaron Fox, adjust to the current roster as it is assembled? You got him coming in. You saw a 5-game, taste test right there. They went 2-3. De'Aaron's been playing really, really good with Wemby and the rest of the players, but it hasn't led to very many wins. So I think he still needs a little more time to adjust. The other part of the chemistry is the locker room chemistry. That's part two of the saga there. Locker room chemistry, why? Because you got guys like Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, guys that are kind of being rumored and talked about amongst media outlets and everyone about possibly being moved in the offseason. Don't want to pay these guys X number of dollars if you're not getting your money's worth. And obviously the last part of the chemistry part is going to be the end part, where the veteran, Chris Paul, can he accept the fact that you're more than likely going to have to come off the bench because you're going to have to see a backcourt of Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox? Why? That gives the Spurs a 1-2 punch at the defensive side of the ball, as well as youth in the backcourt. Quickness, De'Aaron Fox can get to the basket. Him, Wemby, and Castle are the future of the San Antonio Spurs. So chemistry is the biggest storyline broken up into a trilogy for you, Jeff.
Look at that. Yeah, keeping the nerd aspect here going at Locked On Spurs. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, chemistry. Yeah, and for me, it goes beyond like the key players. Is the other guys on the roster that are practically auditioning to stay on the Spurs team. What about what is Malachi going to do? What is Blake Wesley? How's he going to fit in? Bassie, Mamu. These guys to me are on the bubble. Not saying their NBA careers, but with the Spurs, do they mesh well with the core group that the Spurs will take into next season, as you highlighted? So And I'm right there with you. It's how this roster is going to fill out. If those other fringe players can make a contribution immediately, at least in these last 30 games, then great. You got a good shot at staying a Spur moving forward. If not, well, it may not look good because right now it doesn't look good for Blake Wesley or Malachi Branham remaining a Spur for just too much longer. I mean, do they even play anymore? Rudy, seriously, do they even get burned? So, yeah, there's just so much things to go on with the roster. What leads me to my storyline that I'm keeping an eye on is, will Mitch Johnson and the coaching staff just go with the D Fox, Steph Castle starting guard rotation? I think that's for me on my mind right now. Will the Spurs, like I said, Mitch Johnson, see that, yeah, it's Castle that should be getting the reins right now. Castle who should be flexing out there. No knock on Chris Paul, Hall of Fame career. He's going. It's just a matter of time. But if the future is on the Spurs' mind, then the future does belong with Castle, D Fox, and in a big degree, Wemby. So I was looking at some of the numbers here, Rudy, about this, Fox and Castle, and then then Fox and Paul. So a starting two-man lineup of Chris Paul and D Fox. They played together 5 games, and they're averaging, again, let me just double check here. Combined together, they're averaging about 56.4 points per game in that 5-game span. Obviously, a big bulk of that is D Fox in 22 minutes, right? So that's good for a plus 2.4. Now, we look at the D Fox and then Castle two-man rotation there, guard rotation, 5 games in, they're averaging 31.6 points per game, and they're averaging a minus 1.6. Why do you think that is, Rudy?
That's a good question, man. That's kind of hard to even, man, I don't know. I mean,
Right?
if you're looking at the Fox and CP, lineup, I- could it be just simply put veteran versus
It could be,
youth?
yeah.
I mean,
And
veteran versus youth. Pretty much
if
the only
we
way I can think of right there. Sorry.
yeah, if no, it's no problem. We dig deeper, so the Fox Paul combo there is averaging about 3.8 turnovers per game. Let's see if that's hurting the Castle and Fox two-man group here. And they're averaging about, get it here for you guys. It is a long list of things here. There's about 3.6. So it's not that too. The only thing I think of is maybe because Castle's the rookie, and maybe there's more just mistakes on the court. Chris Paul, but then again, people will say, "Well, Chris Paul doesn't really play defense, and Castle does." I just think that we look at the minutes. Maybe it's just the minutes together. So the D Fox Castle combo, 13.6 minutes per game in those 5 games. Obviously, we look at the D Fox and Chris Paul, 22 minutes per game together. So that could be the difference there. It just, that combo's gotten a lot more time to do more work. So either way, that is my storyline. One of mine, I know we're going to get a couple more here, but will the Spurs just give the keys of the car to the rookie and let the veteran know it's nothing personal, it's just business. We got to move forward. But something tells me that's not going to happen though, Rudy. I don't think they'll do that.
Yeah, it seems like, okay, so if it's Gregg Popovich, you're probably thinking that he can make that call, be comfortable with that call. And I think it's just knowing that Mitch Johnson's a rookie coach, basically,
Yeah.
younger coach. I wonder if he doesn't have it in him to tell Chris Paul, look, we're going to have to move you to the bench without getting any pushback. We know Chris Paul is a very fiery player. He wants to be on the court. He came to San Antonio to be a starter because he felt like he was going to be a starter. But once they got De'Aaron Fox, he should have known the writing was on the wall and
Yeah.
that he was probably going to have to take a back seat. I understand Stephon Castle as a rookie, but when you look at him and De'Aaron Fox as a defensive duo, they provide everything you want. I think De'Aaron is averaging over two steals a game since he's been with the Spurs. So I mean, you're looking at how fast do you want to get off from the gates? If you want 2 guys that can play defense with the better part of the other team's better guard play, You're going to start Steph. You're going to start De'Aaron Fox at the same time. I just don't know why they insist on starting Chris Paul alongside De'Aaron Fox. To me, the turnover situation, I want to say this, probably you're going to see Castle and De'Aaron Fox turning the ball over just as much, if not equivalent to what Paul and Fox do, is because of the speed. They play at a very high speed pace when De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle. So when you play at that time, remember the Lakers from back in the day, Showtime, you're going to get a good amount of turnovers when it's fast break basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not done talking about storylines. When we get back, we're going to pick two more storylines the Spurs should be, well, at least Spurs fans should keep an eye on to wrap up the season. Then preview tonight's Spurs Suns right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. But first, we got to talk about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into the same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I miss a chance. Plus, with the app, it's easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You just want to go to FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. How about that? Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
This is Homer Simpson, and you are listening to my favorite Spurs podcast, Locked On Spurs. Donuts.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos, our sixth man here at Locked On Spurs. He's filling in for the no-showing Mike Jimenez. I called you out, Mike.
Yeah,
Rudy,
well, you called him out.
He texted me at the last minute saying that he couldn't do it.
Oh, man. So I guess he feels like he's LeBron in the All-Star game, right?
Oh, good one there.
Unlike that, I'm considered the greatest six man in Locked On history, so I will definitely keep my title.
Your microphone's going to be retired if this show ever comes to an end. So here at Locked On Spurs, follow him on X. Everybody at Sweep the League. He'll talk about his show and how you can subscribe in just a few minutes. We're talking about storylines, some things you keep an eye on as the Spurs season moves forward. Now, we tackled one chemistry. You brought that up. Talked about the Castle, Fox, Paul, Fox lineup, and I think that's going to be a big one moving forward. What's another storyline you got for us?
Another storyline I've got for you here is going to be the coaching part of the aspect of the game here. You don't know if Pop is coming back and if he's going to come back this season. So you see the difference in coaching styles. Gregg Popovich, obviously a championship coach, all-time greatest coach. And, Spurs history, maybe in the NBA history, he's up there definitely. But you've got Mitch Johnson. Mitch so far hasn't been able to, provide the right lineup, make the right adjustment. He's having some struggles. He's learning on the fly. So coaching is a massive storyline for me because if he can get this ship righted and Pop doesn't come back this season, then you kind of start to think, okay, he came back second half of the season, the last 30 games, they were doing really good. Is he going to be the next coach for us? Is he in line to take that? But if not, then you start to think, okay, the front office, Pop, are you coming back? No, Pop not coming back. Okay, let's look at our options. Do we go and contact Mike Brown, who he basically checks a whole lot of boxes off that you want in a head coach. You go and wait to see if, another guy is available, maybe, gets fired or leaves another team.
Yeah.
You've got to go into coaching search in the offseason. But for me, another storyline is coaching. You got to see what this coaching staff is going to provide you for this team the last remaining 30 games.
Yeah. And Mitch Johnson, he's pretty much auditioning for, his coaching future in San Antonio. Not to say they're going to fire him, but will he remain the head coach? Should Popovich call it a day? Or not, or will he, what is the Spurs give him the stamp of approval and say, look, it didn't work out with Pop. You're the guy. And the thing about that, you got to be cautious too, because let's just say the Spurs don't retain him. Or let's put it this way, they don't make him head coach and they make him assistant coach. You can't tell me a young team out there looking for a new head coach is not going to tap his shoulder and be like, well, we saw what you did filling in for a Hall of Fame coach. The last minute, you're thrown to the fire. You did a somewhat of a good job. How about coming over here? Another brain drain of the Spurs coaching staff gone again. That he'll be up there with Dime Udoka, Hammond, Will Hardy. Yeah, the list goes on and on. So that's a really good one, Rudy. That's a really good one. It was on my list right now. Is the coaching and then secondly Mitch Johnson. What were you gonna say?
No, I say, oh, I hope I didn't steal the one you were going to go with.
You no, you did take one of them. You did take one of them. The next, but for me, another storyline I'm keeping an eye on is when are they gonna say, yeah, we're there already? And what I mean by that is, yeah, we're there already. The season's a wash. I want to know if could it be right now? Is there gonna be a moment where the Spurs, let's just say they resume play tonight and they get clubbed by Phoenix and they lose a heartbreaker to Detroit, and then they wrap up the road trip with losses in Memphis. And oh, by the way, they come back to San Antonio against OKC. You can see the L starting to pile up. Is there going to be a time where they say, you know what, let's start looking forward and look at the draft? Not saying the word tank, but you got to go to a point where playing is not reachable. Playoffs are really not reachable. What are we playing for? And I think there has to come to a realization where we're playing for draft odds, climb up that heavily stacked draft. What do you think about that? Do you think that's what we can watch out for is when they will say, you know what, we got to pull the ripcord on the season?
Man, that's what us nerds call Easter eggs, Jeff, in movies. Because that would be an Easter egg of a storyline.
Yeah.
You're definitely not going to come out and say you're tanking. You're definitely not going to come out and say we're not trying. I think that's a great storyline to keep an eye on because you're right. If you look at the the last 30 games of their schedule after the All-Star break, it's not very easy. They got a lot of teams in that playoff mix, in that play-in mix. You're going to get a couple of games where, you're going to win over, possibly a Denver. You're going to get a win over, maybe even an OKC team. You're going to get some of those wins, but it's going to be far and few. So at what point do they say, I think if they come out of the gates after this All-Star break, for example, 20 games, they come out, 7-13, maybe, at that, let's just use that for a fact. Then I can start to think, okay, this season might be a wash. I'm expecting them to not make the play in, maybe sniff it, but not make it. They're definitely not going to make the playoffs. Maybe it's time to get into the off season and see what we can do. So I want to say the 20 games after this, because then you have 13 games left after that. That's the key right there is what are they going to do in this first 15 to 20?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something Spurs fans really got to keep an eye on because what's the point? You don't want to be a middling team at the end of it, because you don't want to be stuck in the middle when it comes to the NBA or just any sports. See, if you're, trying to rebuild, and the Spurs are definitely trying to rebuild as, we speak here. They're not out of it yet. They're getting closer. They're really close. Wemby, Fox, Castle, really going to help. But how about securing another step towards coming out of the rebuild? Getting out of the darkness into the light, then getting a good draft pick, top 10, top 5. Atlanta seemed to be likely going to fall maybe a little outside of the 10 spot, right? It looks like it's shaping up that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead, Rudy.
No, so it looks like it's going to be shaping up, but in this draft right now, I mean, you've got at least 20 guys deep that are going to be able to help an NBA team. So if they're somewhere in the top 20 with 2 picks, they're going to get guys that can come in. And it's essential because, again, the 2025 offseason is going to be huge. It's going to be massive. They got cap space. They've got draft picks. They've got a draft class that they can work with. So you're right. This may be the last dark time, PC, for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yep.
But next season should be a lot better. I think they're going to attract some free agents. They may even acquire another all-star caliber player. Yep. So, it's going to be an okay time after this season. I wouldn't say it's going to be any worse than what it has been.
Absolutely. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. Hey, we gave you our 4 grand total storylines. What are yours? We need to hear from you. We just told you how you can let Rudy know by going to his X handle. You can let me know by simply following me on X as well at Jeff G Spurs Zone, and subscribe to Locked On Spurs. Leave a comment. We'll look to read it in a future episode of Locked On Spurs. When we get back, we're going to look at today's game. Yes, there's Spurs action tonight. Spurs Suns. Let's preview that with Rudy Campos.
This is Emily Swallow, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos, the 6th man here at Locked On Spurs, stepping in for the absent man is, or should I say, very, 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 very late. He didn't really, technically he didn't cancel. He just very late. It's going to be very late. So, it didn't work out, but everybody, he'll be, I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to come on tomorrow. We'll ride. We'll have to see it. But he is Rudy Campos. Again, follow him on X. His show is on YouTube at Sweep the League. Rudy, Spurs and Suns in Austin, Texas. The I-35 series begins today. Are you a little surprised that the Spurs are favored by a little over 2 points?
I actually am a little surprised that they are.
They are favored. They are the favorites tonight, according to Vegas.
Are we sure that Vegas didn't get it wrong and say? But you know what? I think the Suns have their own issues. I mean, you've got Devin Booker, you've got Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, but the only guys you got to really worry about are Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Both can be Spurs killers, especially Devin Booker. I'm not so much worried about Bradley Beal. I think what it is too, Vegas might be seeing coming off of an All-Star break. They see Stephon Castle having a massively good All-Star weekend. Rising Stars MVP, putting up some really good numbers in there and actually making a name for himself. Seeing Wemby compete in the All-Star game, of course, adding De'Aaron Fox. Maybe Vegas feels that after that kind of weekend, they're going to come bounce back really strong in that first game. So it doesn't really surprise me too much that they're actually favored, but it's only by 2. So yeah, it's less than a field goal in football. So it's kind of still a toss-up.
There you go. All right. Your Spurs are 23-29. The Suns are 26-28. For those wondering, the Spurs are 2-4 on the rodeo trip. Don't forget, everybody, the Spurs are coming off a loss versus the Celtics, 116-103. Yeah, they got beat out in Boston. And so hopefully the Spurs can erase that bad taste from their mouth. All right, let's look at some of the stats here. Things to keep an eye on. Good news is, Rudy, the Suns are on a 4-game road at losing. Yay. Hopefully that'll play in the Spurs' favor. Now, I want to keep an eye on the rebounding. Why did I bring that up? Well, because everybody knows in the recent loss, you just got to look at the rebounding numbers and the Spurs are getting out rebounded. And it's not even, it is just so lopsided. So hopefully the Spurs can remedy that. But I guess the other good news is the Suns, they've been out rebounded in their last 8 straight games. So they're not doing a good job on the boards as well. So I think that's what it'll come down to, the battle of the boards, control that pace, that tempo, getting those second chance opportunities, getting out of the transition, start the rebounding. So hopefully the Spurs can take advantage of that. Now, the good news is that the Spurs are still facilitating well. They're still one of the better teams when it comes to assists, Rudy. And right now they're on a 3-game out assisting the opposition streak. So they're definitely spreading that ball around. CP3, D Fox, that helps a lot. Wemby to a certain degree. So all in all, put it together, I could see why maybe Vegas would pick the Spurs slightly over the Suns, just because the Suns, man, seriously, what happened to them? This is a team with Kevin Durant, with Beal, with Booker, and this is what they're getting. You're a Suns fan. You got to be PO'd about that.
Yeah, well, a lot of us have always said it. I know you have too in past years where, just because the team looks good on paper, they got all these all-stars, doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to work. There's only one ball. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are scorers. Only one can score at a time. They both can't score at the exact same time. You had another guy like Bradley Beal who needs the ball in his hand because he's a scorer.
Yeah.
It just doesn't mesh very well for Phoenix. They know it, and that's probably the reason why Durant's probably gone in the offseason. They're probably going to end up moving him. So I can see exactly where you're coming from. Suns fans are probably, irate right now because, again, you expect a whole lot more. You at least expect a play-in berth right now if you're Phoenix with that kind of lineup. But they've got more glaring needs at the point guard position. Bol has actually come around and getting a lot more minutes. I think Coach Bud is actually realizing that he gives them a really good dynamic. So the matchup between Bol and Victor is going to be Shaquille O'Neal's dream matchup from what we've been seeing. So That's going to be fun. But I think the key to the game for the Spurs, you hit around the head. Definitely the assist, it's rebounding. But
Yeah.
for me, it's going to be contain either Devin or Kevin as best as you can.
Right.
If you want to throw a double team at Devin Booker, fine. Let Kevin Durant beat you. It's okay. But you can't have both guys beating you. Both guys combined for 30, 35 each. That's 70 right there. That might spell bad luck for the Spurs. But keep in mind, the game's in Austin. This is Durant's welcome back. And why does it feel like we're going to get a 50-piece right when it comes to Durant because he wants to show out in front of the Austin crowd? I don't know. I'm torn between both.
God, I have, obviously we're talking about tonight's game, but tomorrow they play the Pistons. I haven't split. I have them going 1-1, but the flip happening, like they win tonight versus the Suns, but they lose one of those 1-point, 2-point games versus the Pistons. I think something like that's going to happen because you don't know what you're going to get with this team. You can get the team that, gets beat by practically a G League team, Hornets, lets the Wizards stay in the game, at least for a good half, the worst team in the NBA. But, you go out and you beat your Denvers, you go out and beat your Milwaukee's, so your team is just so Jekyll and Hyde. But I got them winning tonight, but losing tomorrow. But it's the home court advantage in Austin. So we'll see. Isn't it weird that Austin gets to be a first look at D-Fox, not San Antonio?
That is kind of weird. I wonder how many San Antonio fans are making the drive to Austin to make.
Are you making the drive to Austin or nah?
I live closer than what I used to, but no.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah. Well, I'll be out there today. 2 games there. Spend the night in Austin and come right back. Not that far. I thought about just driving back and forth, but that just bleh,
the traffic.
Yeah.
The traffic, man. I wouldn't do it.
No, I'm actually gonna leave early in the afternoon. Before the major, there's always traffic, but before the bigger traffic, and then get to Austin like hours and hours and hours.
Take the phone.
Game,
Better
to people, and then go to the hotel, crash out, do it all over again on Friday. But everybody, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What are your storylines for the Spurs season? At least to close it out in the final 30 games. You can let Rudy know on X at Sweet. And we got to also know what are your thoughts about tonight's Spurs Suns. Hey, Rudy, you've been busy on Sweet, man. I've been seeing you put out some content lately on your YouTube page, even re-airing them the next day. So what's going on?
Yeah, so Sweep the League comes to you Tuesday through Friday right now at 9 p.m. in the evening. We're looking to bump it up so that way we don't have to be so late in the evening. But yeah, we're running our shows again. Sweep Unplugged is getting kicked off. We're running a lot of NFL mock draft shows as well. Not really shows, but we're leading that content out for you guys.
Yeah.
Also on our TikTok page at Sweep the League Radio, so be sure to follow us on there. But before we go real quick, I know on the recent episode of Sweep, I made mention of this. For Spurs fans, talking about the Luka Doncic trade, John Morant, possibly all this stuff. Spurs are on the right path. It's very rare that a person, now I'm going to say Wemby, that a person wins an NBA title. You maybe have Dirk Nowitzki, Rick Barry is another guy that, basically carried the team to their NBA title. But the Spurs needed to do 3 things, and they got all 3. They need a current all-star, Wembanyama. They need a potential all-star. They got in De'Aaron Fox, and they need a future all-star, Stephon Castle. All 3 guys are the reason and the recipe that's going to equal potential contention in the next few years. So Spurs fans, don't worry about this season. Not contending this season, but you've already laid the foundation. Now it's just time to put the pieces together.
There you go. That's where you're going to go check out Sweep the League on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and see that little search bar there, type in the league. You'll find it. Subscribe to that right now. Rudy, thank you for coming off the bench. Once again, here at Locked On Spurs, we appreciate you. And everybody else, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Kinspy Plus app. Check out the Locked On Spurs newsletters in the description below, and you're on YouTube. Link there. Click on that. Completely free. Sign up right now. Hit your email inbox every single day. We'll be back tomorrow. Maybe with Jimenez, maybe not. We'll find out. We'll see what excuse he gives me. If y'all hear Rudy again, nobody should be surprised. But for Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock in this episode Spurs.